Welcome to GoPowerCat.com's Friday Walkthrough, sponsored by Riverbank Brewing. Now, let's head into the studio.
Hey everyone, and welcome in here to the Friday Walkthrough. I'm Cole Carmody with Monty Spiller. Kansas State and Rutgers get set to tangle in the Rate Bowl. First off, Merry Christmas to K-State Nation. Thanks so much for tuning in. By the time you're watching this, it's probably going to be Christmas Eve. I think that's when Fitz wants this to go. Ryan Gilbert and Tim Fitzgerald are in Arizona to cover the Rate Bowl for everyone, for all of K-State Nation. Monty, you will be in Arizona by the time we record this. You are hopping on a flight, heading down to Arizona tomorrow. I'm staying back. But either way, it's bowl season. The college football playoffs were just this past weekend. First of all, let's just talk about that before we get into the show, Monty. I absolutely love this new college football playoff format. The games weren't the greatest, but they were still kind of fun.
Yeah, you're right. And everybody has their biased takes on who should have been in it, who wasn't. And, some of the games panned out like we expected them to. Some of them didn't, but it's been fun. And right now, the first year of this new system, nobody's going to be happy except for the guys who end up winning it all. Different conferences are like, we deserve more teams in. Some conferences are like, well, they don't play anybody, but it's fun. And it's kind of, unfortunately for us as K-State guys, we don't have a team to cheer for directly. But part of me, it's fun to watch other people and not have stock in the game, and it's to kind of see what goes on. Although I will say I am pulling for Arizona State. They are a Big 12 team. They beat us at the time. I couldn't really like them, but right now I'm pulling for them to run the table and hopefully surprise a lot of people because they're a quality team. But yeah, you're right. This new playoff system is fun to watch. I can tell you now, after watching the first Friday and Saturday's games, change is coming.
Yeah.
I can say that now. Change what happened. But the base of the format, I love it.
Somebody brought up the idea of giving the teams who got the bye the home game and having the Bulls have the first round games. I was like, you know what, that might not be a bad idea. I'd be interested to see if they look into that. Also, Will Howard for Ohio State had an excellent game in their win over Tennessee. Obviously, we love Will. Been has had an outstanding season for Ohio State. Won a Big 12 championship with K-State. Wish nothing but the best for Will. Monty, K-State wrapped up its season. They finished the year 8-4, but it feels like it was forever ago. It's weird because in one sense, it's like the K-State season's over and it feels like it happened forever ago. And now the bowl game is here. It felt like last year getting ready to play the Pop-Tarts Bowl, there was a little bit more of an intrigue because Will had entered the transfer portal. It was Avery Johnson's turn. Like there was a little bit more hype. And it kind of felt like the end of a season more of a beginning of the season, rather the end of a season. This bowl game kind of feels like a normal game. It really feels like K-State is going to celebrate its seniors who decided to stick around. They're going to try and build momentum for next year, but this has more of a true bowl game feel than I think the last year's game in the Pop-Tarts Bowl had.
No, you're absolutely correct. It's one of those games. Last year's game, we were excited to see what Avery had to offer as a starter, having a few weeks to kind of prep himself and not share time with Will and going into the bowl game. Excuse me. This year, you're absolutely correct. It's a little bit different. I'm excited about the bowl game. Is there still some disappointment about how we finished? Absolutely. But I'm excited the fact that we still get a chance to celebrate our seniors, send guys out the right way, and then also to get better and keep playing. Because a lot of times right now, some teams are done. And with the transfer portal, teams are decimated. And coaching staffs are like scrambling to get guys to their campuses because they understand right now with the portal and everything else is going on, NIL, if you don't get guys now, you're not going to get them. And this bowl game allows K-State to kind of display and show what we're about as a fan base, as a team, and what we're looking forward to the future. Because if I'm a recruit, if I'm a guy in the portal, I'm watching this game, and I want to see what kind of coaching staff we have, what kind of teammates I could potentially have, what kind of fan base are going to support me if I come to K-State. So that's a good opportunity for us to show recruits, say, hey, listen, we didn't have the season we wanted to have, but look at us still. We're in the bowl game. We're in Arizona. We're supporting our guys, and we're going to continue to compete, no matter what. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that goes.
100%. I think you bring up a great point because you look at this K-State team and it's very it was different. Like at the end of the season last year, there was a lot of guys who entered the transfer portal, a lot of important players, Kobe Savage, Will Howard, all those guys were gone, leaders of your team. And you look at K-State's roster right now for this Rate Bowl, and obviously the two headliners are DJ Giddens and Jacob Parrish. Both of those guys declared for the NFL draft. And I'm of the opinion, if you're in a bowl like this, there's no point in potentially risking any kind of injury that would potentially harm your draft stock. And especially at premium positions like running back, how many times do we see season-ending injuries at the running back position in just freak ways? And you can kind of say the same for cornerbacks out there on an island with receivers. Not so as much, but definitely with the running back position. Both those guys are going to be NFL draft picks. Both of those guys won Big 12 championships, played important roles in the 2022 Big 12 championship team. K-State legends and should be remembered as such. And so those are the two big names that won't be playing in the bowl game. Really, there's only 3 guys on my count. I think the last time I looked, K-State had 12 guys in the transfer portal. How many of those guys were, unfortunate cuts of the 105 roster situation? How many of those guys were maybe told you're probably not going to play next year? I would say probably the guys that are transferring, most of them. But the 3 that you look at and say, okay, maybe these three guys aren't a part of that would be Carver Willis, Keegan Johnson, and Trey Spivey. A name that is still around, which a lot of people thought might leave. There was a report that was out there circulating that this particular player might be in the transfer portal, is Jace Brown. Obviously, things have worked out with Jace, and he is going to be back next season, along with Avery Johnson, along with several other key contributors. But those are the 3 guys that are in the transfer portal. So I think it just gives opportunities for a Dylan Edwards. It gives opportunities for Joe Jackson to step up and really show what they're made of.
No, you're absolutely correct. And with the portal, unfortunately, there's so much stuff going on with college football with the 105 roster limitations now. That does make a big difference. And like you mentioned, DJ and Parrish, and going back to those guys, they're declaring for NFL draft, and I have no problem with that at all. And it makes it easier for me to let go of those guys because these 2 were very unselfish guys throughout their careers. They never were in the media complaining. They competed hard. They understood what it took. And it was never about me. It was about we as a team. And those 2 guys basically represented what K-State football has been about for so many years. So I'm more than happy to support those guys moving forward. Will I miss them? Absolutely. But I don't blame them. If I was in either of their shoes, I would have did the same thing as well. And then there's other guys, talked about Jace Brown. I think with the departure of Spivey, that kind of let him know, what, you are the guy still. And with him being roommates with Avery, it's kind of one of those things. You guys have that connection. You have that relationship. Let's continue to build on it as well. But yeah, it's interesting to see what happens. And I'm pretty sure you are well aware K-State has hit the road and signed some pretty special players already before the bowl game has even happened. So that's a big plus for K-State Nation and for the Wildcats.
No doubt about it. I mean, anytime you can retain your leading receiver, I mean, that's huge. I think the connection that Avery and Jace have showed over the past 2 seasons has been phenomenal. And you look at the season, he's had arguably the best sophomore season at the wide receiver position. You could probably say since Tyler Lockett was at K-State. And even then his numbers were very comparable to Tyler his sophomore season. And so super fired up about keeping Jace. I know everyone inside of Veneer is too. I'm excited for this offense because I think it could be kind of spicy against Rutgers. We talked about the receiver position. You got 2 veterans who are going to finish their Kansas State careers. Jaden Jackson, another one of those guys who's been around 3 seasons with K-State, will kind of have an opportunity to have a little bit more of a significant role. Dante Cephas, the transfer from last season, started to really come on towards the end of the year. Throw Ty Bowman into that mix, the former walk-on, who has proven that he deserves to have a spot out there on the field. And then we mentioned Lockett. Well, how about another Lockett? Sterling Lockett. Could this finally be his time to shine? We'll find out. He had some run in the bowl game, played a little bit early in the season. But from all indications, they're going to roll with the guys they have at that wideout spot. And you mentioned they brought in some older guys at the wide receiver spot. But, Monty, I'm looking at that position, and I want to see some of these young guys step up. I want to see young guys at the running back position step up because those are going to be the guys that are going to help carry this K-State offense next year.
Absolutely. And I'm excited for it. And I think it'll allow Avery to grow even more so as a quarterback and get some reps in doing bowl prep. and then spring ball with these group of guys and the guys we currently have and the guys that we're going to bring in as well. And it's something, and I want to touch on it before I even forget. I know how my mind works. I'm all over the place. Going back to this bowl game and guys that we, not just the seniors, I want the seniors to go out with a bang, but the returning guys. And you can speak on this, Cole. A lot of people don't realize it. The way you finish the bowl game, if we go out and dominate Rutgers and we have a high percentage of guys returning next year, people forget how much of a difference a preseason top 25 rank means going into next year, because you can lose if you start in the middle of the pack. If you lose one or two, hopefully you don't, you're still in that ranking, because when it comes down to the top 12 at the end of the year, because if you think about how many teams this year lost 2 and 3 games, but because they started in the top 5, they still were right there on the borderline or in it because of that. And a lot of people don't think about that. So you got to look at that as well. You got to leave a lasting impression on the voters when it comes to that for next season as well, going into that. So that's something we want to look at. We want to leave an impression, dominate, and let people know that we got a lot of returners back. This team should be a top 25 or a top 20 team going into next season.
I think as it stands right now, Monty, like they should be. I mean, if they can find a way to beat Rutgers, they likely will finish in the top 25. I know after they beat Iowa State, or after they lost to Iowa State, they were still receiving votes. And so 9-win season potentially puts K-State in the top 25 in the AP poll to end the year. Means nothing besides the fact that, again, anytime you return your quarterback, your head coach, and both coordinators, people look at that. And not a lot of change is going to happen. Not a lot of significant change is going to happen for K-State. So it wouldn't shock me to see K-State picked in the top 2 or 3 of the Big 12 poll. Once again, a top 25 team. And as you mentioned, I mean, look at what happened with BYU this year, right? Like that's a team. You look at SMU's performance against Penn State and you're like, would BYU given a better effort? I don't know. But I do know that had BYU been ranked at the start of the season, they probably would have been in with the record that they had. So you're right. I mean, that's really important. And I look too, Monty, I look at the offensive line, because this is kind of something that we haven't talked much about. Ever since Connor Riley moved down to the field, I felt like the offensive line started to play better. This is going to be guys like Hadley Panzer, their last game. Taylor Potier, last game. And then you kind of look at the other side and you're like, well, Andrew Langang stepping in at the right tackle spot for Carver Willis. Easton Kilty's last game. He was a 1-year transfer. And so you're going to have some veteran guys, but you're also going to have some young guys that I think they're going to try and rotate in along the offensive line. I think especially for those younger guys, the Sam Hecks, the Andrew Langangs, this is probably going to be what they're going to roll with next year. You would think if Connor Riley, if they're having success with him on the field, they're probably going to stick with that next year. I look for the offensive line in this game because, again, you talk about building momentum. That's a spot they can improve, and I think the game against Rutgers could be a great momentum builder.
I agree, and it's one of those things where, you want to have young guys kind of get more reps, especially in a game that matters, in a bowl game, and get it early. But I feel like K-State is in a situation where there's not a lot of pressure. And there's nothing against Rutgers. It's just the fact we could be playing anybody for this game, but there's not a lot of pressure on us because, the way we lost to Iowa State, and we were playing pretty good ball. We made so many mistakes here and there that, in my opinion, cost us the game, but we were playing good ball. But there's no pressure because I think it's a dress rehearsal for next year, and I think a lot of guys are going to play motivated. A lot of guys are going to play free and not worry about it because after this, it's a reset. So why not go out and play loose, play free, give your best effort? So like I said, it's not a lot of pressure. And I think our guys, with that situation being at hand, are going to play well. And I think we're going to get a good look and see what we have potentially moving into next year. Now, going into that with Coach Riley, will he stay on the field? Will he go back up in the box? Will there be a change? Nobody really knows. But we are learning from our mistakes from this year, and we can fix it, hopefully, moving into next year. But you're right. I expect our O-line to have a renewed sense of urgency, a renewed freshness about them, have fun, and I expect them to give every time to pass the ball and create some gaps for Dylan and for Joe. So we'll see how that goes, but I'm excited to see how those guys react come on Thursday.
And before we go to the second half, I think something that's really important, and you talked about this earlier, there are teams who aren't playing, which means those teams aren't practicing. And K-State's still practicing, and having a later bowl game in bowl season is good because it gives your guys more time to practice. People don't really realize this, but those teams that lost in the first round of the playoffs are missing out on a week and a half of practice.
Yep.
And I'm sure they would rather be in the playoffs than play in the Rate Bowl. But I mean, there's still quality practices that are to be had. I mean, from a player's perspective, Monty, did it feel like you got a lot accomplished when you were preparing for bowl games, especially as a younger player? Because to me, it sure seems like K-State spends a lot of time on those younger players and trying to develop them throughout bowl prep.
Yeah, that holds true. That was the case when I was playing. That's the case now. We get the older guys who understand what's going on, who see the speed of the game, get those guys healed up. The older guys take more mental reps than physical reps. Obviously, the older guys are going to start, but you do get a lot more reps with the younger guys. It could be with the second team defense, second team offense, special teams, whatever it may be. The younger guys whose bodies aren't as banged up as the older guys, and the guys who are not used to the speed of the game, you get a lot more reps in bowl preparation. And Coach Snyder made a living off of that. He would find a way to get us so many reps. And then after the end of the bowl preparation, we would go out, hopefully win the bowl game, but going into the spring ball, those guys that were kind of behind were caught up to speed, and they were ready to step into that starting role if that was the case. So bowl preparation is so important for any organization and any university football-wise. But, yeah, it always pays dividends. You made a good point. The later the bowl game, the more practices you get. Now, as a player, you may not look at it that way. You're like, man, this is killing me. But once you get there, you appreciate it because you're better prepared.
No doubt about it. We will talk about that bowl game, Kansas State and Rutgers in the Rate Bowl. We'll preview that when we come back right here on the Friday Walkthrough.
It's time to take a break for our sponsors. We'll be back with more from GoPowerCat.com.
Nestled in the heart of beautiful and historic Council Grove, Kansas, Riverbank Brewing is the perfect place to stop before or after the game. Riverbank Brewing, located in downtown Council Grove.
Now let's head back to the show for more K-State sports coverage from GoPowerCat.com.
Welcome back in here to the Friday Walkthrough. Cole Carmody with Monty Spiller. Shout out to Riverbank Brewing for sponsoring this episode and every episode on the third season of the Friday Walkthrough. I cannot believe that this is the third year in a row we've had this show, Monty. It feels like just yesterday we sat on Fitz's couch with a horrible phone angle, just did this thing for the first time. Probably we're not nearly as good as we are now, but hey, here we are. It's been a blast, and this season's been a blast for K-State. The record might not indicate how well this team has played at times, but they did finish with 8 wins for the 4th season in a row. Kansas State finishes the year at 8-4. They get set to take on the Rutgers Scarlet Knights out of New Jersey in the Rate Bowl, played at Chase Field, Phoenix, Arizona. Monty will be there on the 26th of December, the day after Christmas, 4:30 in God's country's time, aka the Central Time Zone on ESPN. Kansas State enters as a 7-point favorite. Monty, I'm going to give you the lowdown on Rutgers, and I'm just going to tell you, I don't think there's very many K-State fans who watch much Rutgers, but they have been the definition of meh. And that's nothing against Rutgers, but this is a team who went 7-5. They started out 4-0, and I remember in week 5 of the season, there's a lot of people around the country. Look at the schedule for Rutgers. Are they going to be a potential college football playoff team? There were a lot of people who thought that what Indiana was this year was what Rutgers was supposed to be. They had a very, very senior-laden group, but they actually lost 4 games in a row after their 4-0 start. Those losses were to Nebraska, Wisconsin, UCLA, and USC, 4 of the bottom teams in the Big Ten. And after that, obviously, Rutgers went on to win 3 of their next 4 games to finish the year 7-5. So they really turned it around. The best win was a win at home against Minnesota. But this is a team, Monty, they haven't really been challenged this year. They didn't have to play Penn State. They didn't have to play Ohio State. They didn't have to play Oregon. Well, you look at those 3 teams. Those are the 3 teams who are in the college football playoff. They also didn't have to play Indiana. They're also in the college football playoff. So they haven't really been challenged this year, and I don't know if they've seen the speed that K-State's going to throw at them.
I agree with you, and it's not a knock at Rutgers. I forget sometimes that they're even in the Big Ten, and it's not a knock against them. It's one of those things where, and even when I look at the Big 12, I see Arizona State. I'm like, oh yeah, they're in the Big 12, and this is one of those things. So much changes, and it's not a knock against them. But you're right. They, with the conference as big as the Big 10, some teams will play each other, some won't. And going into the season, they had an opportunity to have a very successful season, and they could avoid a lot of the top teams. And they did avoid those teams, but they still weren't as successful as you thought they would. But yet, it's not one of those teams where they don't wow you. I kind of look at them like a Maryland as well.
Yeah.
They have quality athletes, but they don't scare you. It's Big Ten football, mid-level at best, and I'm not knocking them. Obviously, they're in the bowl game for a reason. They did enough to get into the bowl game, but I think our speed, compared to their speed, definitely a different level. But on the flip side, they can match our physicality because, like most Big Ten schools, they are physical football teams. But on the flip side, we play physical football as well. So I think they'll be surprised to see our speed on the edge. And if our O-line, as you alluded to earlier, creates gaps for our backs to get in, they'll be surprised how quick we hit those gaps and get outside and get upfield. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
No doubt about it. It's pretty funny, Monty. They finished 9th in the conference, and they only played 2 teams that finished ahead of them in the conference. And so this is the definition of a team who, honestly, really had kind of an easier schedule and didn't really take advantage of it maybe as much as they could. But they've got a very dynamic running back, and his name Kyle Monaghy. We still don't know if he's going to play in the bowl game. He hasn't officially come out and said either way. That was as of a week ago. I would have to imagine that he will play in this game with it so close. So I would expect to see him, the guy who finishes with over 1,200 yards and 13 touchdowns. You mentioned they're a Big Ten team. They like to pound the rock, and they're a pro-style offense, especially when you consider the quarterback with probably the best Greek name I've ever heard, Athan Kalakamanis. He is a quarterback, obviously, 17 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He's only ran for 200 yards, so he's not going to beat you with his legs. That's not what he wants to do. This is a pro-style offense. They want to run the football, and very similar to K-State in that sense. But again, their offense has to perform, because if their offense doesn't perform well, we know that K-State has a solid defense. And Rutgers, it's plain and simple. You look at what K-State's done on defense, they're going to have to score 30 points to win the game, because K-State typically, when they have gone up against inferior opponents, take out the Houston game, the offense has been really good. And so you talk about pressure. Well, there's a lot of pressure on this Rutgers offense, because I have the feeling that the K-State offense is really, really going to put up some points.
I agree with you. I think Rutgers is going to, like you said, they're a pro-style team. But I feel like with the being a bowl game, with them in the same situation, kind of not having a whole lot to lose, being an underdog coming in, I think they're going to throw the kitchen sink at us. They're going to come out with trick plays. They're going to do anything they can. I think they're going to run a lot of screens. And with their quarterback not being a mobile quarterback compared to what we've seen this year, that plays in our hands. For us, we have our linebackers that have mostly played most of the year back available for the game. And our linebackers can be strong for us, and they have a good running game. But if our linebackers shut down a running game, then we're going to force the quarterback to make plays. And a lot of times when we were in situations where we got beat deep, it's because the quarterback extended the play with their legs. It's not because they just sat in the pocket and picked us apart. And I think Rutgers won't be able to do that. So that plays into our advantage. If we come ready to play and do what we can do, it's all good. I know we missed Parrish at our corner, but I feel comfortable with the guys we have replacing him. So it should be interesting to see how that matchup goes come Thursday.
Justice James, typically the third cornerback will step in and play probably the boundary corner, you'd have to imagine, for K-State. The guy who has been in the program for 3 years and has performed well when given chances, he'll have an even bigger chance against Rutgers in this bowl game. But it also brings up an opportunity for Zayshawn Rich, a true freshman who really got his first game action against Colorado, guarding Jimmy Ward and all of the Buffalo receivers. Nothing like being baptized by fire. Zayshawn Rich, Donovan McIntosh, another redshirt freshman, might get an opportunity to see some playing time. Both of those guys are listed on the depth chart on the defensive side of the ball. You look at this Rutgers defense, Monty, they've gotten 20 sacks on the season. But the thing that I look at is they've only forced 12 turnovers. And that is not exactly a very large number for 12 games. And, typically if you can force 1 turnover a game, you're doing all right. The only kicker is when you have 3 games, well, really 2 games in the non-conference against Howard and Akron, you'd like to be able to create a few more turnovers to kind of pad those numbers a little bit. Not to mention, you'd think there might be games where you'd grab 2 or 3. That didn't really happen this year with Rutgers. if K-State doesn't turn the ball over, Monty, I really like their chance on offense.
No, I'm with you, and that holds true for any opponent we're playing against, but especially against the Rutgers. We hold on to the ball. We can do, honestly, no matter what our game plan is, offensively wise. If we want to speed them up, I feel like we would be successful. If we want to ground and pound, we will be successful. We just have to take care of the ball. Don't make stupid mistakes. Don't make penalties, and we'll be okay. But that's discipline, and I feel like we got back to that role the last couple of games, and hopefully that carries over into the bowl game. But you're absolutely correct. We should be able to do what we want to do no matter what the game plan is offensively.
Rutgers has played one team who was ranked inside the top 25 this season. That was Illinois, when Illinois was ranked 25th in the country in week 11. They lost that game 38-31, but they did finish their season on a high note when they went to Lansing, Michigan, and beat Michigan State 41-14. So they finished the season on a high note, the opposite of what you could say for K-State. And kind of like you and I were talking before the show, Monty, I think this is going to be a good game, but I think it's going to be a good game because both teams want to be there. You think back to the Texas Bowl a few years ago, and K-State was happy to be there. They wanted a better season, but they were happy to be there. Skylar Thompson played. It was Colin Klein's first time as offensive coordinator, and they built on that and carried it into the next season and won a Big 12 championship. I think both teams want to be there. Rutgers, I'm sure they're disappointed to be 7-5, but they had a solid end of the season. K-State, we know, just look at the numbers. The guys are not opting out. They're not transferring. They're bought into Chris Kleiman's culture. They want to be there. I think this is great for college football. And would you sacrifice maybe not playing a name brand for two teams that want to be there? Monty, if you ask me that question, I'm going to say yes, 100%, because two teams giving it their all at nearly full strength is so much better than some of these other bowl games we've seen.
Absolutely, and it goes back to culture. I can't speak on Rutgers culture because I don't know a whole lot about Rutgers outside of we played them one time before and we lost that. But for us, that's kind of who we are, and it's one of those things where we are not built like other programs, and we can't do what other programs do. We can do what we do and plan the bowl game. Guys having pride in it. Guys coming to finish the season off. Excuse me, is what we're about, and then we'll build up on it for next year. And I feel like this is kind of a precursor to what we're going to see for next year. And I'm with you, I'm truly vibing with this. And I think going into next season, we'll be one of the top 3 teams picked in the Big 12 to win it and to make the playoffs. And hopefully our kids buy into it with the pieces we've already added and the guys that we currently have. I like the idea. You know what? We can't change the past, but we're moving forward with the future, and our future starts Thursday, and Thursday builds on next season. And a lot of people don't look at it that way, but for us, it starts next season on how we move forward.
It's an interesting note. You bring up Rutgers. Greg Schiano is the head coach of Rutgers. He's had 2 stints there. Monty, I believe this is purely. This is my perception. I could be wrong on this, but I would find it hard to believe that there is another coach who's played K-State 2 times and never played Bill Snyder from a different conference. Think about it like that. Now, obviously, there are some coaches before Bill Snyder, but since Bill Snyder took over, I would find it hard to imagine that there is a team outside of the Big 12 to play K-State 2 times and neither time Bill Snyder be the coach. That would be Ron Prince was the coach in the 2006 Texas Bowl where Rutgers defeated K-State in that game. You bring that up, Monty. I want to talk about this. This is the last thing we'll talk about, then we'll get to our picks. I think there's going to be a lot of purple down there, and not exactly the happiest times around Manhattan right now. Some of the status of another sport that we won't talk about on this podcast. But I feel like this game has an opportunity to bring all of the K-State nation together. This feels like a healing opportunity. Go out, watch this version of Kansas State one more time, and kind of see what the future is going to look like with Dylan Edwards, with Avery Johnson, with Jace Brown on offense. You go on the other side and you see those pass rushers that K-State has on defense, throwing Austin Romaine, who's going to be a first-team All-Big 12 preseason selection next year. There's a lot of really good young pieces. This feels like a great opportunity for a giant healing session for all of K-State Nation.
Absolutely. And it's one of those things where I feel like this season has kind of been like a trial run for us, which is crazy as it sounds. There were so many different aspects that were new. A new OC, a new starting quarterback. You had some new players that came in after the fact. And you understand, Cole, with the NIL, with so much going on with the NCAA and with college sports, there were a lot of unknowns. And I feel like K-State as a administration, as a coaching staff, as a culture community, and as a university, we adapt well. And I think next year we will look back and see what we did right and what we did wrong, and we will adapt to it. And I think the fact that we are able to keep a lot of pieces in place will show Lynn something special next year. So it is something to get excited about. It is something positive at the end of the year during the holidays to go support the guys. And I expect to see a lot of purple at the Red Bowl down in Phoenix come Thursday, and something to finish off the season with on a good note. So I'm excited about it. You know, I got frustrated. You and I talk all on and off camera about it a lot. And I feel like our coaches know, they hear the grumbling, and a lot of people complain behind the scenes, but they hear us. And I will say another positive: we get to see the white helmets on.
That's right. Thank you for bringing that up. That's a great segue. I think those uniforms are going to look awesome, by the way. The white pants, the white helmets. I'm fired up to see it. The recruits love it. The kids love it. I think the fans will embrace it as well. And maybe if they can finally break that curse, we'll start to see them a little bit more often. One can be hopeful. As we finish off this season by getting into our picks, K-State 7-point favorites. I'm going to take them to cover. I'm going to take them to win. I think this offense is going to be explosive. I think it's going to be fast. I think it's going to be creative. They're going to find ways to use both Dylan Edwards, both Joe Jackson as well. I want to see Dylan get in space. I want to see Joe get some touches. And I'd like to see a deep ball to Jace Brown. I think all three of those things are going to happen. And, oh, yeah, they also have some tight ends who are pretty good. So I think this offense is going to score a lot of points. And I think the defense is going to be solid, create a few turnovers as well. This is going to be all Cats for me. Monty, I'm taking K-State to win 41-20.
Oh, you told. I'll tell you, we've been on spot all year, man. I'm thinking 41-14. 41-14. And I'm saying that 14 because Rutgers, they can put together long drives and they find ways to score. But I think they're going to try to keep the ball away from K-State as much as possible, keep our offense off the field, but we'll find ways to score quick strikes. But I'm with you, 41-14.
The party is going to start early in Phoenix for all of K-State fans. I think we both agree on that. It's going to be a great game. I hope you enjoy it, Monty, and I hope K-State fans everywhere, wherever you may be, you enjoy the game the day after Christmas. Eat your Christmas leftovers. Watch some Cats football. It's going to be fun. On behalf of Monty, I am Cole. Thanks, everybody, so much for watching, supporting, commenting, liking, everything that you've done. We would not be able to do this show without you. So thankful for everyone, for all the positive comments we've received this year. It has honestly been absolutely amazing. Our following has grown so much, and we thank you because we would not be able to do the show without you. Thanks, everybody, so much for watching. Enjoy the game wherever you may be. Merry Christmas, and we will talk to you next time.
Thank you for watching the Friday Walkthrough, sponsored by Riverbank Brewing. This has been a GoPowerCat.com and Spirit Street production.